Hello and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. Today I have an extra bonus video for you. This one's quick and simple, but I just wanted to show you my new moulds and how you can use pigments on your moulds with Aquacast for absolutely beautiful results. If you would like to see how I created my beautiful rose candle jars, stay tuned and enjoy the video. I've just received the moulds that I'm going to be using today and I love them to bits. They're from Boo Wan Nicole and I will put a link and discount code in the description. They've really stepped up their game recently. The mould support is now absolutely amazing. It's held together by magnets instead of clips now, and look at that. How cool is that, the way it just clips together? Anyway, let's get started. Okay then, so I carefully worked out the volume of my mould. The one I was planning on using today was just the Rose Reverie mould, and that was fine. I measured it and that was all good. I got my measurements written down, but then my scales decided to go wrong. And when I weighed out my water, the numbers kind of jumped a bit. I could see something had gone wrong, but for some reason I didn't start again. I just carried on. So I ended up with too much water. So off camera, after I'd added the correct amount of powder and realised it was really thin, it was a really thin solution, I had to just add more powder until it was nice and thick. So as it turned out, I had enough to make 2 jars, so I'm getting to show you both moulds in this video, and it worked out perfectly as it happens. So if you know me by now, you will have guessed and probably read the title. I am using Aquacast. I absolutely love it. It's an eco resin, a water-based eco resin, and it's my favourite thing to use now. I do still love epoxy resin, but Aquacast for me is my favourite. So at this stage I still didn't realise I'd added too much water. I added the powder, mixed it up, and I was starting to think at this point, this is a bit thin, something's gone wrong. And yeah, I was quite cross. So when I get cross, I usually turn the camera off and have a bit of a paddy. Anyway, that's what I did. I turned the camera off, but all I did was I added more powder until it was just right. So then it was time to prepare the moulds. Actually, really, I should have done it the other way around. It's always best to prepare your moulds and then start mixing the Aquacast, but it didn't matter because I knew it wouldn't take long. I'm using a watermelon coloured pigment powder, which is from Resin. My favourite kind of rose is like a yellow and reddish orange colour, and I really love it. We used to have one in my old house, but I haven't managed to replace it yet. But I really loved that, and I thought those were the colours I would like to go with. So I just took a small paintbrush, got some on my paintbrush and dabbed it around on the inside. I didn't want to completely cover it, I just wanted a little bit in there on some of the details, so I'm not putting much in. And then once I'd finished, I just banged it upside down to shake off any excess. And then I did the same on the jar part of the mould. With hindsight, I wish I hadn't. I didn't like the results of that so much. You could kind of see my brush strokes. But you live and you learn. I loved the way the lid of this jar turned out, and you will see soon why. So yeah, that's all I did there, and I will fast forward now. So here I'm doing the bit that I regretted doing, just adding a bit of pigment to the jar. It still turned out okay, but yeah, I wouldn't do it again. So once I'd got that prepared, I put the frame around the mould, and I have discovered that it works best if you put the support frame on the mould before you add your aquacast. I did have a practice with this before filming this video. Well, I say a practice. I started filming the video once already and it went wrong, and that was because I added my aquacast and gave it a good old squeeze around without the support because it made it a lot easier, but then discovered that once I put the support on, and I didn't know until I demolded it, but it caused a kind of ridge inside the mould, and all I could think of was that it was from putting the support on after adding the aquacast. So yeah, this time I was trying again and putting the support on first, and it worked out so much better. So I'm using vivid orange pigment here, and that's from Homeware Design on Etsy, and they make pigments especially for eco resins. I didn't want it to be vivid orange, so I just added a bit because I love this colour. When you just add a bit, you get a really lovely warm yellow. So I started by pouring the aquacast into the jar part of the mould because I wanted the inner part of the flower to be darker in colour. So my intention was to do the jar first, add a bit more pigment, and then do the lid, and that way I would get the two tones in there. But I realised that because I'd made more aquacast than I needed, I might be able to manage to do the other mould as well. So after doing this one, I started on my other mould, which you will see in a moment. So I've got my fingers right inside the mould there, and I'm giving it a good squeeze. So even though it's got the support on, I was still able to squeeze it and tap it and do all the usual stuff that you do to make sure the bubbles can get up to the top. As you can see, it's not completely filled. If you're going to be squeezing it, you want to half fill it or 3/4 fill it, but not all the way, otherwise it's going to go everywhere. And then once I'd done that, I just topped it up. And as you can see, the screen is shaking. That's because my table was shaking. I was giving it a good bang. And so here's my other mould. This is another rose jar, and I will put links to both of them in the video description. They're both gorgeous. In fact, I think I like this one best. And I'm just doing exactly the same thing again, filling it gradually, giving it a squeeze and a bang. So now it's time for the lids, and as I said before, I'm just adding a little bit more pigment to make it a bit darker so you get a little bit of contrast, and it's just the same colour again. And so as you can probably tell, the lids for these two jars are very, very intricate. There's lots of detail in there with those thin petals. And so I was very slow filling this up. I just added a little bit, gave it a good swish around to make sure the aquacast had got into all the nooks and crannies, and squeezed it and banged it a lot. You really need to take your time with something like this so that you don't get any pockets of air or bubbles trapped in there. And that extra time that you spend doing that, I promise you, it will really make it worth it. It makes all the difference. So once I'd done that and given it a good move around, made sure everything was coated, I filled it up. And then it was time for the second lid. So I repeated the process with the powder on the mould, and I was praying that I would have enough aquacast to fill this one because this one's a lot bigger. And yeah, I was really hoping. And do you know what? My prayers were answered. It was exactly the right amount of aquacast to fill the lid. So isn't it amazing when that happens? It really is. So an accident turned into something really good. My skills going wrong made me make more aquacast up, and it ended up being exactly right for 2 jars, and I got to show you both of them. So the mould for this lid has a ridge around the top, which creates a perfect place for all those little bubbles to rise to the top and accumulate and have a little bubble party under the ridge. So what I like to do is get a micro brush and just swipe it underneath that lip on the mould to try and eliminate any bubbles. You'll probably still get some because even after you've left it, bubbles start to rise to the top, but it wasn't too bad. So here I'm just patting all the sides, and the lids don't need a support, they keep their shape really well. So after an hour of curing, it was time to take them out of the moulds, and I couldn't wait to see how they turned out. And as I mentioned before, I wasn't so keen on the mica powder that I'd brushed onto this one. It just didn't work as well as I'd hoped it would. It's nice from the top, but on the sides I wasn't so keen. But I tell you what, it's brilliant how well the Aqua Cast picks up all that mica powder. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. I know that some eco resins don't pick it up off the mould, but Aquacast definitely does. And look at the detail in that lid. Isn't that amazing? So yeah, I'm glad I made the centre a little bit darker. It gives it so much more depth. So you'll get a closer look at that one soon. But for now, let's demold the other one. I was dying to see how the other one would turn out. So the body of the jar is nice and simple and clean and elegant because it's the lid that has all the detail, and that's where your attention needs to be. So let's look at the lid. Look at that. Wow, all that detail and not a single air pocket trapped. I love Aquacast and I love this mould. Absolutely stunning. And I'm going to put some rose scented wax in my rose candle jars. I didn't do that for this video, but that's what I will be putting in there. I actually got a mould with this jar for making your candle wax. You put your candle wax into the mould and let it set and put that in separately, which is quite cool. I haven't tried it yet, but it's good. Yeah, look at that detail. Oh, I'm in love with this mould. So let's have a look at the other one. There we go. So this one is a bit more, the lid is more disguised. It blends into the flower. And yeah, it's really cool, isn't it? What a cool idea to design it like that. I'm loving that. So the next day, when it was fully cured, it was time to wax the jars. I'm not going to do the lids, I'm just doing the jars. And the main reason for it is because I thought that the jars were a little bit too pale and the wax really intensifies the colour. And yeah, after I'd done it, I was happier with it. It kind of went with the lid better. But at the moment, I found it was too pale. So yeah, it's Clark's wax for stone and concrete that I like to use. I use it all the time because it gives such a lovely finish. And as I said, it intensifies the colour. And I didn't do the lids. And I get asked a lot when I'm making candle vessels what to use for the inside of the vessel. Well, I don't know for definite, but my thoughts are that wax inside a candle jar isn't so much of a good idea because it's going to get heated up, and I don't know, for some reason in my mind it won't work. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But because I wasn't sure, I've never used the wax on the inside of the jars when I'm using them for candles. Instead, I use Hydroflow Sealer from Elichem Resins. And hopefully you can see how just by adding that wax, it really made it look a lot nicer on the outside of the jar. And I think these two jars are absolutely beautiful. And there we are, all finished. And yeah, it was a simple and quick video today, but I really love the results and I hope you do too. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to subscribe, please do. And I will see you again next time. Thank you for watching and bye for now.